The concept of what the lead wrist does in the backswing is super important because that lead wrist has a really fundamental influence over the angle and position of the club face, not only at setup, during the backswing, but also predominantly at impact. And that's probably the most important point, is where does that club face come back to? Because there's no point setting up in a perfect position with a really nice grip, then taking the club to the top and having the club face in a really awkward position, and then you have to try and recover from that before you hit the golf ball to keep it on line. And any mistake you make during your backswing and setting the club in the right place is going to be very, very difficult to undo. So let's have a look at what the wrist should do and what are the problems that we might get into if we don't quite get this right. So there's three parts to this really. We want to set up in the right place, and we could have a wrist at the top that we would consider to be in a bowed position, so a lead left wrist like this. We could have a cupped position where it's this position here, or we could have a flat left wrist in a good spot. Now, if I have it in a bowed position, I have a feeling the club face is going to be in a very, very closed spot. If I have it in a cupped position here, it's going to be very, very open. If I have it in a good position, you'll notice the leading edge of the golf club is level more to my lead arm. That's going to get the club in a better position to then be squarer for when I hit the golf ball. Now, I have to be really careful with my advice at the moment, because if you look at the world's two best drivers of the golf ball, we might argue, certainly the best player in the world at the moment, Jon Rahm, he has it in a very, very closed position at the top. He has a very sort of bowed left wrist. You've also got Dustin Johnson, who very famously, very high, very closed position here, club face really, really closed, hits the ball down the middle every time. You might see some golfers go to the driving range and try and copy those positions, try and get that left wrist in that position, and they'll hit it all over the map. They'll hit it left, right, mainly left, as a right-handed golfer, because that position is very, very difficult to get out of. So it's important that as golfers, we don't always try and copy the world's best players. We certainly don't copy them unless we understand how they then compensate. You know, if you're in this position, you're going to have to make lots of compensatory movements in the rest of your golf swing to square that face up. So the key important part for most club golfers is we want to hinge the wrist in the correct place. So hinging the wrist in the backswing is going to be a case of taking the club back this way and then pointing the thumbs up towards the sky to set the wrist into a good position, but being careful that we don't this way, and we don't cup it back this, sorry, we don't bow it this way, we don't cup it back this way. So changing that left wrist position is massively changing the club face. So from this angle, as we take it back, we want to see that the club face is parallel to the spine angle. Then as we set the club up to a good position at the top, it's parallel now to my leading arm. If I've got a mirror or a camera there, I can check that that's level to my arm. It's not in a closed position, it's not in an open position, nicely on my left arm. Then I should be able to turn down and square that club face without too many manipulating parts like a Jon Rahm or a Dustin Johnson need to currently do. So let's go ahead and set up. Probably best here if you actually video your golf swing from down the line, because you might be able to manipulate the club into the right position, but you won't see what it actually looks like until you make some full swings. So good setup, couple of good swings. See where that left wrist was at the top of the swing, and hopefully if you get the left wrist in a hinged position, not bowed, not cupped, you two will be able to strike the ball a little bit better and hit those nice high drawing tee shots.